Hello and welcome to the short video where I'm going to try and show you how you can mix yourself the color of the year, which is Viva Magenta. So here is the official fabric swatch from Pantone of this color. So I decided to order one because I couldn't trust the screens. The color comes differently on different devices. So I thought if I ordered the swatch, I would be better off, and the color would be more, the color that I mix would be more close to the original one by Pantone. So this is a cotton fabric, piece of cotton fabric which has been dyed this Viva Magenta. I assume the color will go through, will appear on this video as well, probably distorted, not as in its true form. So if I looked at it, I would describe it as like a raspberry red. So magenta obviously suggests a magenta, a type of magenta color, but it has quite a bit of red in it. So that's where we are going to start. So I'm going to be mixing, or I'll show you my attempt at mixing it. I use normally I use powdered Procyon dyes. So here I have two manufacturers, or dyes by two manufacturers. So one is Jacquard, so they're these bigger jars, and the smaller jars is a British company which is a Color Craft. So both of them I have recommended before in my newsletters and on my website. Both of them have an extensive palette of colors. You might not want to buy them all. You might want to buy the essential ones, or the ones that you like more, you use more, but obviously they are intermixable, so you can produce an infinite number of other colors mixing these dyes. Also you can mix the dyes from different manufacturers as well. So you can mix these Colorcraft dyes with Jacquard as well if you want, or if you've run out of yellow in one of them, you can use the other manufacturer as well. So they're totally intermixable. They're economic and they last ages. The only disadvantage here, I would say, is that it's difficult to reproduce the color once you've mixed it, because they're so concentrated. So obviously a tiny amount might alter the mix, and it's difficult to quantify how much you've used. To help you quantify, you might want to use something like this. So these are tiny little measuring spoons. I think this is 1 ml and the other one is 7 or 8 ml. So if you maybe take, say, the little one, a measure of this, and try and dilute in a measure of water, so that might be your starting point at least, and then you can add some other dyes to it. You can try and record what you're mixing, but as I said, the quantities sometimes are very small and it's very difficult to quantify them. Since it's the color of the year, perhaps you want to mix a bigger batch of it, and that it will keep. You can put it into a jar. Often I use jars like these. These are not very big. It's only probably 30 of maybe 50 ml. No, not even 50, probably 30 ml. So these are from little jams, but obviously you can take a bigger jar. A lidded jar will mean that your dye will last longer. They're not they can't last indefinitely, because sometimes they go off, or you will see a residue forming at the bottom. Sometimes you can filter it, or carefully get rid of it, but you'll probably use it up before it goes off, or anything like that. So you see, I sometimes label the dyes that I use often, so that's helpful if you want to do that. So since it's a magenta color, I guess it's easier, or I thought it would be easier to start with a magenta dye and then see how we go. So if I look at this swatch and the magenta color that is on the jar. They're really, really close. Unfortunately, the dye in there is not that close. So you can try and test the jar, the jar dye on a piece of paper first, or maybe on a swatch of fabric. So if I take a tiny quantity, so you see it's much, I don't know if you were able to see, it's much more fuchsia pink. So it's totally, not totally, but it's quite off what we want. So if you tested your magenta and you see that it's not the right, shade of it, of this Viva Magenta that we want, then it will help you probably identify what other dyes you might need to mix with it to get the right shade. So looking at this one, I thought I would definitely try some red. So it needs more red in it. So there's a Scarlet Red by Procyon. I also have, there are a couple of reds by Jacquard. So one is Fire Engine Red and then Carmine Red. So again, you can try and see how they look. I'm testing at the moment just on a piece of paper. That's not the ultimate test. So this one is also quite a bit pink. So it's red, but it's a pinkish red. It's not kind of cold red. So the Scarlet Red from this jar might be a bit redder, if I can say it. Yeah, this one is, it's more like it is Scarlet Red, so it's more like kind of orangey red with more yellow in it. If your red is pinkish, you might want to add some yellow into the mix as well. So there's a lemon yellow, which is a colder yellow. There also is a warmer shade of yellow that you might want to try. Also, I've tried to deepen it at some point. I was trying to use a bit of warm black. Well, warm black is really kind of nice cold coffee brown or something. So wait a minute, this is not mixed, but it's kind of really like very, it's not black at all really. So it is more like it has quite a bit of red in it as well. So it can be used. Eventually I decided maybe I shouldn't have used it. So I made several attempts trying to mix it. So I can show you some of them. So here you can see different shades also. I tried different fabrics. Please remember that you have to test the color on the fabric that you're going to try, you're going to be dyeing. So the fabrics differ in finishes, fabrics differ in the fibers that they're made of. So, there is cotton, there is silk, there is linen, there is viscose. So rayon, they will all, the color will come through differently on different fibers. Plus, if you have a shiny satin fabric, it will look brighter. If you have like a matte cotton, the color will come through a bit dull, more duller, so not as bright. Again, silks can be shiny silks. Then there are some duller silks. There are organza and the velvet. So they're very, very different fabrics. So it all will come through in a different way. So if you want an exact match, you should try and make a swatch in the exact fabric that you're going to be using, not just on a piece of paper, not on whatever fabric is you can get, but the exact same fabric that you're going to be using. So that will be the closest match to the result. Also, some pigments stay in fabric more and others come out more. For example, when we dry a piece of fabric on a paper, blue seems to disappear and yellow seems to stay more. So sometimes it's good to try whether you want to, you know, dye it on a piece of plastic, dry it, sorry. So if you put your swatch or your petals or leaves onto plastic, it will take longer to dry, it will be more intense, but it probably will keep that color, because sometimes if we dry it on newspaper, some color runs out of the swatch or of the fabric, but with it some pigments run out as well. So your color might actually change from the moment that you've dyed it to the moment it's dried. Not only it will become paler, but it also will, you know, might change considerably. It happens with some particular fabrics and with some particular pigments. So yes, there are quite a lot of pitfalls, and it's not easy. I mean, here I'm looking, they're all very, very similar, but I wasn't pleased with some of them, or was pleased even less with some of them, more with others. So eventually I think I've mixed the one that I like. So here are my last swatches. I think this is a crepe de chine. So because I'm making some roses for a photo shoot, and one of the colors of the photo shoot is this Viva Magenta, so it was kind of important to try and catch this color correctly. So I think this one is really, really close. These are cotton ones, so they're also close, a little bit off, if I say, but I think probably as close as I can get to it. Obviously having the swatch right here also helps, so I'm trying to be really precise with the color. If you just look at the screen, you know, the degree of variability will be much greater. So what I would say is, you know, start with magenta. Magenta will also be different by different manufacturers. I have several magentas here. I also have like a raspberry, which they're all kind of slightly different. So depending on your magenta mix, you will, you know, need to add less or more of your red, and also depending on which red you have, you might need to add more yellow in it. So you have to basically try and see, you know, starting with the colors that you have, how you can achieve it. So yes, it's a pretty color. It's kind of, as I said, like a nice raspberry red, very suitable for flowers. So I would highly recommend you try and do it. So if I now tried and did my swatches, you will be able to see how it looks. So to try on a swatch, first I'm gonna water it, because obviously my petals will be watered first. I don't want to dip it dry, because the color will again be quite intense. So take off extra, and then you can dry it here. At first, you know, it's gonna be much deeper probably because it's also wet. You can try and dry it on a piece of plastic. So this is silk, and I'll also do a cotton one. All the fabrics are pre-stiff and ready for flower making, so it might also, you know, affect the color. So try to do a color test on your pre-stiffened fabrics, because that, as I said, might also matter. So this is a cotton one. It's quite a lightweight cotton. So here are my swatches. Once I've done a color and I think it's close, I'm doing the swatches, and then I'm waiting for them to completely dry, and then I'm comparing them with my you know, master swatch. So then once you've had your dry swatches and you are not happy with the color, you can assess, you know, what the difference is, and maybe add a little bit more red or a little bit more pink. At first mine were a bit too pink, I think, here, and then I added a bit too much red to it, so it went the other way. Became a bit too red and not enough pink in it, so I had to kind of adjust it a little bit. Luckily the pieces dry quite quickly. The other important thing is that try to do it in the daytime, with plenty of daylight, so your judgment is clear, and you have a good light, a natural light, to assess what colors you've mixed. There's no point trying to do it in the evening, because the colors are going to be all changed. So yeah, so this is I would say this is what I did, and this is what I would recommend you try and do if you want to mix this Viva Magenta. As I said, it looks a nice color, definitely very good for flowers, quite intense, but I'm sure for some of the flowers it will work very well. So I hope it was useful, and let me know in the comments if you need more help, or if you've been successful, what dyes you have used, and how it went on for you. Bye, and see you soon.